I think young people in this quandary exactly what their future looks like, and that can be a bit fearful. They're aware they're being manipulated because AI is being made attractive, it's having things built into it to make it appear more human, so we respond to it more emotionally. We know that, and yet we continue to be sucked into it.
Will it replace teachers' jobs?
I honestly don't think so. I honestly think what it will do is adapt us, and it will make us better.
Hi there, I'm at Bangkok Patana School today. I'm with Chris Sammons, who's the new head of school, and we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic of AI in education. I have to say I haven't been in a headmaster's office for about 55 years, and it wasn't quite as warm and friendly as this the last time I was there. Chris, tell me a little bit how you got to be at Patana.
So I'm not going to ask you why you were in the head teacher's office last time, but I've been in education now for just over 30 years, and 10 years of that has been in international education, and a good 15 or so years has been in leadership of education. So part of being the head of school at Patana is just the curious story of how it was founded and how it grew based on maternal love and the very deep values that the school has that really attracted me. The way that the not-for-profit status of the foundation board has made sure that the fees that are raised from parents just are returned to the community. And so for me, the most attractive thing about coming and working amongst and on behalf of this community is just the very deep values and the ethos that are around now as much as they were in 1957 at its inception.
Wow. So is that an important thing, the foundation aspect, as a sort of, many of the international schools in Bangkok are for profit. What's the sort of single, thing that defines that?
I think the point of difference is that the people who serve on our foundation board and then our steering committees are genuinely stewards of this organisation. So their incentive is not to generate a profit, to return to somebody that's not connected to this school. Their genuine, authentic incentive is to give service to the community and to see the community flourish for the objectives that it sets for itself. And they're just very honest and straightforward objectives: well-being, learning and global citizenship. And so we only have to focus on those three things and the depth that we can get to in our history.
So when you were thinking of coming over, I mean, Patana seems to be, it's certainly a leader in education in Thailand, but does it have that same role in Asia? Is it looked upon as being one of the kind of regional leaders in education as well?
Yeah, I think it can demonstrate leadership in lots of areas. It can demonstrate leadership in organisational aspects. It can demonstrate leadership in how to invest in leaders. It can demonstrate leadership in classroom pedagogy. It can demonstrate leadership in how we utilise our resources and create our spaces. So I think there's actually lots of interesting ways the school demonstrates leadership for the good of the whole system.
Right. Well, we did a series of 3 videos with your students, from 3 and 4-year-olds, I think 7 and 8-year-olds, and 15 and 16-year-olds. They were all very engaged and engaging, and they seemed to be having a good time, but they were very, very prepared to express themselves, even as young as 3 and 4-year-olds. How do you, is that something that is just natural to young people, or is that part of the ethos of Patana as well?
So curiosity is an absolutely natural part of being human. It's how we learn right from the moment that we come out of the womb and we're getting hit by all the senses. And that just lasts all of our life, doesn't it? And as we go through our life, what we learn is we learn how to channel curiosity, and we learn how to be guided by curiosity to do the things that we want to do as human beings. Educational institutes can build on that natural gift that we have as human beings, and in here what you'll see is teams of teachers that really build on curiosity through playful-based learning in our foundation stage. And it's a really skillful thing to do. As you watch a group of children playing through their natural curiosity, the point at which you intervene with that group of children to build on their play is really a critical moment. Right. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to rob the opportunity from the students. What you want to do is you want to help them continue to construct it. And then gradually over time, we can build on that ethos of playful-based learning, and we can get more serious about play. So as a child learns language, develops conceptual understanding, we can actually then build other things into the environment so they can still kind of benefit from how they're learning through curiosity, and we can kind of put a few guide rails around it.
But how do you, so how do you drill down into an individual when you're watching them come through that process? Are you able to sort of nudge people back into line, or what do you do?
I'm curious about what that means, nudging back into line.
Well, it doesn't sound good, does it?
No, I kind of think...
You want them to be a little bit individualistic, I guess, as well, do you?
Yeah, I think the way that you sequence learning is to... There's clearly some things that we want our students to be able to know and be able to do. And so our job as educators is to work out a really engaging, curious provocation that can kind of dovetail into their curiosity, and actually we can build in the kind of things that we want them to be able to do, like read or write or integrate media or express themselves. And so the nudging into, I wouldn't call it nudging into line, what I would call it is skillfully adapting to what the child needs at that moment in time. And to your point, what I think a human is able to do is to take hundreds and hundreds of data points without even realizing they're doing it, and be able to adapt that and come to a decision for what another human needs in that moment. And actually, sometimes, as we know through our lives, what humans do is ignore all of that for some reason, and that's where things can go wrong.
It's too difficult sometimes to actually intervene, and you don't want to. But you talk about human. The other side of that argument is artificial intelligence, perhaps, which is a big topic now, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because what are the fears around artificial intelligence and education at the moment?
I think some of the fears that young people carry is, what does their future look like? It's increasingly uncertain. Whereas you and I perhaps were able to imagine a job that we could express ourselves in from our skill sets, that's increasingly challenging for young people to do. So I'll give you the example of my youngest son, for example. He went to university 3 years ago now with a really clear sense of wanting to learn the law and become really skilled in the law. He's completely changed that with the advent of AI, because he understands that so much of the law could be automated. And what I think perhaps he's missing, and perhaps what I think young people can miss, is there still actually is going to be required a sense of judgment at the end of it, and that is a very human quality. In the classroom, a very simple thing a teacher could do, I don't want to reduce education to passing exams, but let's say you're sat in your year 13 and you've got to take a final exam. Rather than me setting a lesson to get students to produce an essay, which I know they can do, rather than me spending an hour getting them to do that, talking about it, marking it, and then hand it back, what might be a better activity is to just get AI to generate the essay for me, and to then get the mark scheme, and to spend the hour I have with the students really deconstructing it. So how well is this AI meeting the examinations rubrics? So what I'm doing is I'm shifting myself from just getting the children and students to learn knowledge and how to give it back to me, to getting them to really think. And I'm getting there within an hour rather than getting there within 3 hours in terms of my lesson planning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But so is there a drive, are students telling you we want to spend more time interacting with each other as well? Do we want to be face to face with our teachers as well?
Yes.
Which is a surprise to me, because you'd think, oh, enough of that. But.
No, I think, oddly, the pandemic was a gift in some ways. I really don't want to undervalue the tragedy of a lot of our stories and the people we lost, but in the same way, it was an opportunity to understand about what makes us human and keeps us human. And so many people, as a result of having to learn in isolation, to learn online, to learn in these alternative ways, started to understand the value of what it means to be in community. And so that's exactly what students tell us. The vast majority would prefer to be in community with each other, in community with adults, and constructing knowledge and meaning between themselves. Now, AI might be or remote ways of learning might be very useful to some young people or some adults who might have different neurodiversities or might have different preferences, but the vast majority of people actually just value being in community together.
So when you look at AI, do you feel that there's any danger that it might kind of lead younger people to sort of have certain beliefs one way and others a different way, and create this kind of bipolarity we're seeing in older groups of people?
Yeah, I think most definitely. And one of the benefits of an international education is that on this site, for example, we have 68 different nationalities. That's a fantastic resource to have in your classroom, because we can put an artifact that we want to look at, a piece of art, a science experiment, a rock, and we can actually get people's perspectives on all of these things. And depending on our cultural heritage, depending on our belief systems, depends on our values, we'll all have slightly different perspectives about what that meaning is. And so the range of perspectives around the room, we gradually learn that our perspective might not be the only one. And actually our perspective might come from some inherent ingrained beliefs that we've never had cause to question. Now, students in international schools learn that gradually over time, and therefore when they become adults, they become very open-minded that there are lots of different ideas. The challenge for kind of just learning AI or learning in kind of monocultural contexts, of which AI could just be reinforcing your monocultural view, is that you just never get to understand there are different ways of looking at the world. Right. So AI is perhaps could reinforce someone's position if they're not self-aware enough to know that there's other perspectives.
But having, you said 68 was a large number of international communities represented amongst the student body. You know, I was taken when I saw one of the earlier videos we did with the 16 and 17-year-olds where they talked about social media. One of the students was from China, grew up in China, had a totally different perspective to it, because immediately felt that everything from social media was controlled, because that's perhaps their experience back home. Whereas someone from Thailand or from the US had a completely different view of it. And so you somehow have to marry all of those different processes together to create a generic version. Perhaps, I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, so let's say there's open-mindedness, and now let's say there's critical thinking. So actually, just because we might come from a political system that has more liberal or democratic processes doesn't mean that the social media is any less controlled. Yeah. It's not. And so really what our job in education then is just to develop critical thinking for anybody from whatever society they come from. So perhaps what we need to do is move the debate on, probably in terms of stop thinking about AI as this threat and start thinking what are the universal themes behind AI that will exist for all of us and have existed before when we were just working with print format, and will exist in the future as AI becomes something else.
Really. You sound net positive, if I may say so.
I'm net positive because I think it's a helpful tool. And if you look at the evolution of human beings, they've always developed tools to serve a purpose. Right. My worry is any tool in the wrong hands can be dangerous. Right. And so what matters is the deep ethical values we can develop in humans. So whatever they have in their hands, they do good with. And really that's what we're trying to do here at Bangkok Patana.
Right.
And it's not something we're trying to do, it's something that our founders began with, and we will just carry on the story with this latest tool we have at our hands.
So maybe I can end up by asking you, you've been here not yet a year, but how's it going, and how do you feel you're bringing Chris to the system here, and what are the changes you think might be happening in the next year or two as you look forward?
It's really interesting. I'm kind of falling over myself now because and what can I do? Well, what I can do is just listen, and then listen some more, work out what it is the people need, work out how I can complement that, and then surface the solutions that can help us move forwards. So have I got a big answer and a big master plan? No. Do I believe in the kindness, the optimism and the talent of human beings? Yes. Do I believe especially exists here? Absolutely. I'm having so much fun working with people, through people and alongside people. So for me, it's about actually keeping things the same, the values, the maternal love which started this school and can still be felt in the heartbeat of the things we do, even though we have these huge amount of resources available to us. How can we take that to more depth so we really understand the value of intercultural learning? And how can we really start as educators, as one set of stakeholders, really understanding the kind of the neuroscience of education and our own philosophies of education, and exploiting and working out where the overlap is and what really matters in supporting the kind of the science of learning. How can I work alongside the fantastic parent community we have, who are so active in this community, on our genuine partners, to help them raise, strong global citizens. So if you want me to summarize it, do everything that's already been done to greater depth and with even more purpose.
Chris, you've been here about 8-9 months, I guess, at the moment. Let's broaden the discussion out a little bit for a very final question. Any community, any country needs to have a great education system.
Yeah.
What's your observation of the overall education system in Thailand, not just the international schools?
So I'm really lucky to be involved with an organisation called ISAT, which is a group of schools. I think we're up to nearly 200 international schools, right, who come together to work out what it is we can do for each other in supporting the educational proposition of Thailand. It is a phenomenally collaborative organisation, and I think that's a representation of Thai culture, that people want to come and work together for the good of the country. So I just feel intensely hopeful from the practitioners that I interact with, and the educational leaders in particular that I interact with, because of what they're willing to share with each other to build what's needed next for Thailand. So I just see this phenomenal capacity which will help Thailand work out what it needs to do on the next bit of its journey as it responds to some of the global trends. So I just feel nothing but hope for Thailand as it moves forward in terms of its aspirations for more economic growth, for the betterment of its people, and for the influence that it could have globally.
So net positive on AI, net positive on education overall in Thailand. Chris, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you too.